EVs are rapidly losing popularity, and Ford has decided to beat its competition to a pulp by returning to its roots before anyone else. As a result, instead of their original projections concerning their shifts to EVs, Ford will be introducing a whole heap of new internal combustion-powered vehicles, just as God intended. So let's not waste any time and check out what the Blue Oval has in store for us, as Ford CEO just revealed 7 new Ford models for 2025 and shocks the entire car industry. Number 7. Ford Ranchero. Ever since the Ford Maverick hit the market, we've been asking ourselves one question: why isn't there a single cab variant? Don't get us wrong, we adore the Maverick, as it showed Americans that a practical and comfortable all-rounder vehicle doesn't need to cost you $50,000 plus. It's a phenomenal little truck. However, due to its dimensions, it always felt that there was something to be desired in terms of bed space, especially for those of us that need a workhorse instead of a people carrier. Well, worry not, as Ford is about to release a vehicle that will fulfill this role. Enter the long-defunct Ranchero. This resurrection of a well-beloved nameplate will be very true to the original truck, offering an affordable, work-oriented truck that is also fun to drive. Sure, you wouldn't expect a muscular V8 or V6 under the bonnet, as the truck will share the Maverick's platform. However, depending on the spec, the truck will be offered with sportier suspension, which, when coupled with the 2.0 EcoBoost, will make up for a very fun truck. That said, most of the lineup will be more work-oriented, which means that it'll essentially share most of the characteristics with the Ford Maverick, except for the fact that it'll have 2 less doors and a much larger truck bed. As of now, we're not sure if the Ford Ranchero will come as a single cab or an extended cab. However, we're fairly certain that it'll be even cheaper than the Maverick, essentially fulfilling Ford's promise of a $20,000 truck. Number 6. Ford Taurus. The legend is back, and don't worry, it's not a crossover SUV. Ford is bringing back the Ford Taurus as a sedan, and we're very hyped for this because the streets are becoming increasingly boring with the constant barrage of SUVs flooding them. That said, this won't be an all-new model. What it will be is the same Ford Taurus that is currently offered in the Middle East, with some slight cosmetic updates to make it less, tacky and flashy, if you will. This means that it won't be a full-size sedan, but a mid-size one. That said, because of this change, you can also expect it to be more affordably priced than the old model, which means that we might actually finally see the return of the venerable sedan as a body style entirely. Oh, one can only wish. Number 5. Ford Focus. You must be thinking that we're out of our minds, as the Ford Focus is still available to purchase, and while that might be the case, Ford announced the discontinuation of the compact hatchback a few years back. However, Jim Farley has recently backtracked on his original statement, as there is still quite a bit of interest in the Ford Focus. This is because the Mazda's own hatchback, the Mazda 3, showed the world that a well-built, practical, and frugal vehicle doesn't need to cost a small fortune. As a result, we'll be getting an all-new version of the Ford Focus in 2025, which will be a massive improvement over the previous generation, and which is said to drive the sales of the model upwards because, believe it or not, it is expected to share its platform with the aforementioned Mazda 3. To be more precise, it is expected to share the platform with the upcoming generation of the Mazda 3. You see, Ford and Mazda have had a very fruitful relationship over the past few decades, with both manufacturers sharing engines and even some lesser models amongst one another. However, this will be a stepping stone for an even greater partnership than it was before. Honestly, we can't wait. Number 4. Ford Capri EV. No. Another EV revival of a well-known nameplate is something that we'd say. However, the Ford Capri EV looks like quite an interesting proposition, even if it is an EV. You see, The Capri EV, which shares its nameplate with the European classic that is the Ford Capri, it will be similar to the Mustang Mach-E, a vehicle that tries to cash in on the hype of the old model. However, though, unlike the Mach-E, which costs a small fortune to purchase, the Capri EV will be Ford's first properly affordable EV, which is why we can overlook the fact that its nameplate is just nostalgia baiting. You see, EVs still make very little sense as primary vehicles, as their high price tag and limited range make them very situational. However, the Capri EV will try and offer a solid second vehicle for a very respectable price. It'll have a standard range of around 200 miles, which isn't very impressive. However, it is expected to be expandable to up to 350 miles. At the moment, the Capri EV is offered only in Europe though, and its range figures are a bit less than previously mentioned. However, we expect it to enter the US market sometime in 2025 with the improved range figures. The price in the US is expected to be sub $40,000, undercutting the Tesla Model Y, which it goes against by at least $5,000. Sure, this isn't the best of revivals per se. However, nameplate aside, we believe that EVs, when executed like the Capri EV, do make a lot of sense. Number 3. Ford Everest. But enough with revivals! It's time that we saw the introduction of an all-new model. Well, sort of. That is, you see, the Ford Everest is, just like the Ford Taurus, already offered in a variety of markets across the globe. However, with the 2025 model year, Ford will be bringing it to the States. The Ford Everest is basically just a Ford Ranger, with its bed replaced with an extended roof and a third row of seats added. Otherwise, they're practically identical, sharing the same interior, front fascia, and doors. This means that you will essentially be getting a capable off-roader that's also extremely practical for larger families. And not just that, but since it basically shares most of its panels with the Ranger, you can expect its price tag to be more than approachable for most buyers. It is expected to cost the same, if not just a teeny tiny bit more than the Ford Ranger, which is phenomenal. And since it'll share most of its powertrains, most of the specs of the Ranger translate directly to the Everest. Plus, since the platform is also shared with the Ford Bronco, you will basically be getting a more road-oriented and budget-friendly version of America's second favorite off-roader, which is a pretty sweet deal. That said, don't expect an Everest Raptor, as that would be a serious compromise. Number 2. Ford Explorer Sport Track. The Ford Explorer Sport Track essentially represents a complete opposite to our previous entry, where the Ford Everest is a pickup truck-based SUV. The Ford Explorer Sport Track will be a crossover-based pickup truck, which will, you guessed it, be derived from the Ford Explorer. You see, the Ford Maverick has shown Ford that not only is there a market for unibody pickup trucks, but they might just be preferred to body-on-frame ones, especially when it comes down to the casual driver. They offer better driving dynamics, much better levels of comfort, and a generally more pleasant ownership experience, while allowing the same amount of practicality as their body-on-frame pickup trucks, at least when it comes down to bed space. The Ford Ranger Sports Track will, as a result, be more or less a Ford Explorer, with its third row removed and the back part of the roof and interior cut off and replaced by a truck bed, just like the original Ranger Sport Track from the 2000s. That said, Ford also understands that the current market and economic situation requires a vehicle to be as affordable as possible, which is why we can expect the Ford Explorer Sport Track to be a cheaper alternative to the Ford Ranger. As a result, Ford will offer the Explorer Sport Track as, essentially, a larger version of the Maverick, meaning that it will not just be a direct competitor to the likes of the Honda Ridgeline, but since it is expected to use budget-friendly materials, it is also expected to be a fair bit cheaper than the venerable Japanese offering. Number 1. Ford Maverick Lightning. We know what you're thinking. Oh great, another EV. Why did I even click on this video? Well, no, the new Maverick Lightning won't be an EV. Believe it or not. Instead, it will be a plug-in hybrid. sharing its powertrain with the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, which is what we've been waiting for nigh on 4 years by now. The Maverick Lightning won't be a drastic change compared to the current Maverick overall. It'll boast only slight cosmetic changes, some 20 horsepower more compared to the regular hybrid, and probably some interior features that'll make it more distinct. However, its practical use will be a world of difference. This is because the electric range of the Maverick will be some odd 35 miles, making it perfect for city commutes. Additionally, the improved MPG figures will also mean quite a lot in the current economy, especially with gas prices getting more expensive by the day. All in all, a very welcome addition to an already fantastic vehicle.